I couldn't decide how long I wanted to wait before I made a video recommending all the best YouTube videos that have come out so far in 2025, and it quickly got ahead of me. There's already more of them than I would want to have to talk about, so maybe I'll do this more frequently. I'm just gonna call it like part 1, part 2, because I don't want to be restricted to any specific time period when I find out about a great video that came out in those 2 weeks during the next 2 weeks and I want to recommend it. Just if it came out in 2025, make sure I see it so I can get it into this series. I'm not going to include my own content. I put out videos constantly. I think they're all worth watching, so check out my shit. My links are all there. Let's talk about everybody else's great videos. And if you missed my top 25 YouTube videos of 2024, where I also had 155 honorable mentions, a lot of the channels that I talked about in that are gonna also turn up in this. Now, I ended off last year with a massive video essay about the artist who inspired me the most last year, Doechii. And while I was finishing that video and I was on vacation out in California, she starts putting out these quote-unquote trailers for Denial is a River as a show, and I didn't know what to make of this. I didn't have time to check this stuff out while I was gone. And by the time I was back at home and ready to start watching YouTube videos again, was like right when the Denial is a River music video actually finally dropped. I finally got to go back and watch these, and they mostly came out towards the end of December, and it was just 4 very short, very strange sitcom parodies that look like they were filmed like on the set of Too Many Cooks, practically. It's in that same parody style and level of absurdity, but instead of being one gag, it's 4 very distinct but thematically connected gags using like the characters from the story of Denial is a River, but in very metaphorical, oblique ways. Like, it feels like Doechii is just trying to give you the most vague sense of what kind of guy this guy that she was with was like, and like maybe the type of life that she kind of imagined or thought that they were building together that ends up falling apart in this weird way. But the videos are hilarious. Particularly the one with Schoolboy Q is funny as fuck. All these guest spots, Earl Sweatshirt's here, Zach Fox, like, it's obviously paying homage to stuff like Loiter Squad. All these old Adult Swim shows, basically. This feels like an Adult Swim show that they don't make anymore. And then the music video itself is interesting because it is kind of a literalization of what the song is about, but it goes from being in the sitcom parody to like midway through pulling back and like suddenly becoming in like the present and catching us up to the fact that, okay, all of that happened and I'm now making a show out of it, and now I'm making a show out of the fact that I'm making a show out of it. So you end up with that extra meta layer, which is totally unexpected if you watched all the trailers first, because it's like, oh, this was like nothing in the trailers indicated that we would take this turn at all. But of course, if you know the song, it makes sense because the song has sort of 2 different stories being told in it. One about that relationship's conclusion, and then another one about how she has been dealing with the industry in the years since then. So I feel like the shorts kind of built out that first part of the story more so that it could feel more full as part of the song. And then when the music video takes that turn, it could be surprising, but also you don't feel like you didn't spend enough time in that other story in its universe because there were those other videos beforehand. So that's what I think made it work. I think it was a very interesting little project. I would love to know if there was like more that just didn't work, or if there is more planned, or if, she will do rollouts like this. Like, this feels so singular, so momentary. It's hard to imagine like her doing another thing that feels just like this. It's so out of left field, but at the same time, because there's so many people involved with it, it feels like like almost bigger than it is, you know? Like it's kind of just a bunch of people having fun doing like a goofy little rollout for a music video, except that those people having fun are all like recognizable figures in this world that like Doechii has never been a part of, but she's clearly bringing together an identity in who she chooses to have in these videos. Like she's creating a sense of self by way of who she collects for this storyline, which is super, super interesting. All right, so towards the start of the year, Joey Badass, New York rapper. I've never been a huge fan. I never like spent a lot of time listening to him, mostly because he kind of always sounds like he's shouting, just like constantly. And some people say that about Denzel Curry, but if you listen to a whole Denzel Curry project, that is not true. Whereas Joey Badass really is like always in that register. I really liked him on Denzel Curry's song Zenith. That's what I know him for the best as a Denzel Curry fan. So he puts out a song basically challenging all of the love that the West is getting right now. The fact that people keep saying LA is on top, the West is on top, and he's like, hey, New York is still the birthplace of hip hop. It's still where the best rappers are. That could potentially be true, but he didn't really prove that in any meaningful sense to me with this song. And mostly he just got lots of backlash from everywhere else. I enjoyed the coverage of this from Read My Soul because he's from New York and was talking about it from a New York perspective and why this song wasn't unifying New York, why this was not going to be enough to bring New York into the conversation by itself, and like some other strategy he could have used. And there was also a video by the Company Man responding to this video, which is also good. The Company Man puts out so many videos. If something happens in hip hop, he almost certainly has coverage of it, and he tends to be the most objective, most journalistic. I do tend to remember a lot more of like the opinion pieces, but I feel like a lot of those opinion pieces would not exist if the Company Man didn't first like break this news to everybody, you know? So I appreciate the back and forth that he always kind of engages between other channels as these stories break. J-Reg has been absolutely killing it this year so far between the main channel and the Greg Guevara channel. The Urge to Kill Your Own Consciousness. This is a video about his Balatro addiction, and having just been through the holiday season, of course, with gamers in my family, I knew who would be playing Balatro, and I was not surprised by who could not stop playing Balatro through long segments of being in the midst of family and everything. And this video, I think, does a great job of connecting with what is compelling that. So if you're one of those people who feels the urge to kill your own consciousness, you know, I'm so good at it, I don't need help from a video game. I can just blank out. But another weird controversy that's been going on this year. So Lupe Fiasco, who is a legendary rapper, incredibly influential on the likes of Kanye West and Kendrick Lamar, he's teamed up with MIT, the college, and he's trying to build some kind of AI that can, I don't know, replace himself. I don't know why. I don't know what's in it for him exactly. I don't know what his idea of what he's doing for the future of rap is, but people are not happy about it. Nobody really likes AI. Personally, I think AI right now is a fad. I think that using AI for art is a fad. I think that we are already deeply embedded in using AI for everything else. I mean, AI is what determines what YouTube videos you watch, period. It is the YouTube algorithm is literally an AI. So we are already using AI heavily in our day-to-day lives, and we don't necessarily like all the ways that it's being used, but it is working for stuff like algorithmically finding and categorizing what humans are doing. It's not good at doing what humans do, and I don't think it's anywhere near close enough. It's a cute party trick, but it's like 3D or like, you know, NFTs and all this other shit we just been through. Like every couple of years, there's something that everybody's like, this is the future, and then you realize that, like, yeah, it might be the future in the future, but it ain't the future in the present. Anyways, Abso-fucking-lutely has been talking about this, and Lupe Fiasco kind of slid into her DMs and started trying to cause trouble. This situation has escalated to the point where she's not talking about it anymore. So we'll probably hear about it in the future when we find out what's really going on here. But this has been wild to watch happen. It's turned a lot of people on Lupe. You know, a lot of people are like, "What's going on, Lupe? Please don't take influence from Ye the way he took influence from you." All right, moving into a different topic. Sonic the Movie 3. Vic and Hope did a video. We're finally here talking about it. If you like these here Sonic films and you liked this here third Sonic movie, these two do the coziest discussions of whatever they talk about. I mean, if you just click on the video and look at the setup they have for it, I think you'll understand why this is the go-to Sonic the Movie 3 discussion. Luesta tends to make videos about rappers' drama, like the whole history of leading up to why they're at where they're at in their career. And this year they started off with the rapper whose marriage ruined his career, talking about Chance the Rapper. This shit is sad, man, because I was a huge Chance the Rapper fan when Acid Rap came out. That was like one of my top 10 favorite albums for quite a while. His whole voice and the sound on that album was a big influence on me. I liked what he was building towards. And then he kind of I think he just got so caught up in trying to be all kinds of shit, you know, trying to be way more than just a rapper, that he seemingly totally went into a different type of sound, a different type of mentality towards what he was saying in his music. And it's not that I wasn't down for it, but it took him so long between releases that, like, going in such a different direction, it was like, all right, but are you still going to make stuff that sounds like Acid Rap? Because you got Angels on here, and, like, that song's really good, but I didn't really care for Coloring Book. And when that ended up being the even more successful album, that made me really worried about, like, okay, well, where's Chance going to go if he's already kind of left behind the sound that his fans got to him with, but his new sound is popular, so maybe it won't ruin his career. But then he moved his sound again and took too long between releases again and kind of developed a reputation of being a cornball, and then made this whole album about, like, how much he loves his wife, but in, like, he didn't sell it, you know? It sounded desperate. And it turns out it was, because then they got divorced a few years later. And, like, the sad thing is that Chance has put out a ton of amazing raps since then. And he found a sound that really works for him. If he made an album out of the material that he has been releasing since The New Day, I would think it would go over pretty well. But he hasn't done that. He's just released these songs that sometimes they like, people like them, but none of them have been hits, and there's never been like a congealing into like a new project or like a new sense of identity. It just feels very random, and there's not like a narrative that you can follow through what he's doing. It's just like every once in a while you get a new Chance song, you're like, all right, that was pretty good. Yeah, this video, it really made me like, damn. I hope there is a path to recovery from this, but at the same time, Chance is one of those rappers where, like, when I go back, some of the bars don't really, you know, hit the same way as they did back then, especially watching who he's become and, like, figuring out what he's really about and kind of, you know, thinking, all right, well, a lot of these lyrics aren't really like who you seem to actually be, you know? It's just like you saying stuff because you thought it sounded good. So I don't know. He's a tough one. I think his newer music is probably better than his older music, but it's just so hard for him to connect that with a fan base that doesn't see him as, I love my wife. This video by Def Goldblum called The Pride of Ankle John, the illest in the district. I still haven't done that much looking into this dude, but this is one of those videos where it made me immediately think, well, this guy seems really good. And then I listened to his music and I went, this guy's really good. And, you know, DC rap is very underrepresented, definitely in need of more discussion because there's a lot of great rap music from Washington, D.C. So this was a cool little mini documentary. Another good mini documentary, JPEG Mafia versus Arm & Hammer, the whole story, on this channel called Jimmy with an X instead of an I. This is a resolved beef in the sense that the people in the beef are not beefing anymore. But I know some people who are still haven't forgiven JPEG Mafia for the way that he handled this whole situation. And I had never really understood what happened. Like, I'd heard about JPEG fucking over some other rapper through, reselling beats and stuff like that, or taking away beats that he had promised to them. This gives you that whole story. It's interesting because, like, Elucid and JPEG Mafia are, like, the two, like, premier schizo rappers, particularly of 2024. Like, if I think the most schizo rap albums. So I can I feel like I understand from a schizo rapper perspective how they would inevitably end up butting heads, but it's also kind of like, I don't know, JPEG Mafia really didn't have to, It's just like dumbass rapper shit, really, so I'm glad it seems to be resolved. I hope that nothing like this ever happens again. Professor Sky's record review. What was it like to buy music in the 1990s? It's 1994. What would you do with $50 in Harvard Square? I think this is a really interesting way to approach the idea of, like, telling the story of a moment in time. Not literally, here's a day where I went to Harvard Square and here's $50 worth of what I bought, but, like, kind of collecting everything that I might have purchased or that you might have purchased at the time, and, what could you have bought in a day with $50? How could you have spent that in 1994, which, $50 carries you quite a bit farther back then. I don't think I actually saw this whole video. I came into the live while it was going, but it got me nostalgic for the 90s, even though I was born in 1991. So in 94, the stuff he's talking about is stuff that I found out about later, but a lot of the culture wasn't that different. This was the beginning of the CD era really being big, and that's where I grew up with CDs. Curtis King TV. Not only did he have my favorite Joey Badass response, really going in, really kind of making him look lame and salty, and also being like the YouTuber perspective, which is really interesting. One of the things he really comes at Joey for is not knowing how to create content, like how to be a regular content creator, because of the fact that Joey kind of hasn't been around very much for the last few years, so it kind of felt weird for him to show up out of the blue with a song like this, where it feels like this is something that should be coming from somebody who's on the grind all the time. It's like Tyler. When Tyler came out and, started pumping himself up as like, hey, I'm number 2 of LA, by the way, last year, like, that worked because it was true and he had the projects to back it up, and like he really could say, yeah, they cheered like Pac came out at the pop out, because that happened. Joey Badass didn't have a moment like that he could draw on to make himself seem interesting. Anyway, Curtis King's diss track was great, and also his video, LA Artist Catches Heat for Shooting Music Video During LA Wildfires, is another good one. I don't have much to say about the LA wildfires. There's videos about, actually, I'll get to J-Reg's video. That'll be the one I really comment on the wildfires. I like this video as well because it talks about the controversy of creating art that maybe does have a message, but that message is edgy, and so you really have to look into exactly what it's saying to decide if it's actually worthwhile artistic statement or not. All right, Man Tracks, a true story of fake fossils from Folding Ideas. This is an 1.5 hour long documentary telling a pretty random story about some fake fossils that were very convincing for a while, and a brief stint of a culture that sprang up around them. And I like this because when you travel around, especially in the United States, where there's a lot of random notated history, like you could just be walking through a place and you'll find like a plaque that tells you something that happened in that place, and oftentimes trying to unravel more information about that will lead you down these rabbit holes, because there is not only so much history that can be told about any given place, but also because there are competing interests in who tells the story. And this is a great lens into that, like just looking at one particular thing and the different people who have told different stories about this thing, how much of it's true, what has kind of been sorted out today with the understanding we have now. So it's a pretty good video. When Being Passive Aggressive Goes Wrong by Deleted. This is a great analysis of a situation that played out on stream, where this streamer had a rapper on stream who brought along his crew and kind of just like kept pushing boundaries until the point that he had to be kicked off the stream, and it created this incredibly awkward moment, and he kind of analyzes all the awkwardness, breaks down what could have been done differently. I think this is just a great video to watch for anybody because it shows you how to manage your social dynamics better. Things pop off on Houston legend Mike D's podcast, Reaction from the Company Man. If not for this video, I probably would have heard about this from Josh Johnson, who talked about it in one of his stand-up bits from this year, and that bit was also pretty hilarious. But the clip itself is just incredible. It's literally a podcast recorded in a guy's house, and his guest, while fumbling through his pocket, accidentally sets his gun off and like shoots himself in the leg. And the reaction that everyone involved has to this happening is it's just like a classic clip. It's one of those clips that will go down in history. I've noticed something going heavy right now this year. Right off the bat, a lot of people coming at Snoop Dogg. Snoop just put out this new album. Generally, it's agreed Missionary is a pretty good album, I think. I don't know, it didn't seem to make much of a cultural splash, but generally it was not like a bad album. I mean, I listened to it a few times, and then I kind of moved on, you know. It didn't leave like a strong impression on me such that I would keep listening to it. But I generally, you know, I think Snoop Dogg is one of the most innately charismatic people out there. There's just something about how he carries himself, the familiarity he's created with himself, putting himself everywhere all the time. But the problem is he really puts himself everywhere all the time. And so, like, over my lifetime, I've always known Snoop to be like a highly variable quality. Like, you never know if you're gonna be hearing like a legendary Snoop verse or just something okay, if, you know, he's gonna be in like some dumbass commercial for some product you couldn't possibly care about, or if he's actually talking about something real. And so it dilutes his legacy that he is somebody who simultaneously we're supposed to take seriously as a hip-hop legend, but also he just does so much whack shit. Now, Moxie Approved is a channel who talked about how Kendrick's GNX exposed Snoop Dogg as a fence sitter. And he kind of goes back and, you know, shows how what happened with him posting the tailor-made freestyle. Kendrick saying, you know, I prayed it was the edibles. Snoop says, of course it was the edibles. But Moxie shows how this is a pattern of behavior with Snoop. This is just the way he is because he wants to be everyone's favorite. He wants to be beloved by as many people as possible, and so he's going to keep flip-flopping and changing positions to be whatever matters and, you know, whatever's going to make him liked in the moment he's in, which will ultimately make him a traitor to everybody on a long enough timeline. On the subject of Snoop as well, he has decided to perform at some bizarre crypto bro pre-inaugural inauguration party for Trump that Trump's not even at. He's catching a lot of heat for it, but the best was from Open Mike Eagle. Snoop performs at Trump inaugural event. This video is hilarious. Open Mike Eagle has a very artful, very poetic way of packing out Snoop, in a very literal sense, because like there's this sort of format of pack outs where it's like people talking about packing you out of culture temporarily, essentially, but OME frames it as he has this dream festival called Unk Fest where all the Unk rappers get to perform, but he's kicked Snoop out of Unk Fest because of this. So that's a very fun way to visualize the packing out metaphor. It's a really funny video. It's the level-headed take on the Snoop situation in my mind. But also on the subject of Snoop, When Snoop Dogg Was a Pimp. This is a channel I only found out about like yesterday when this video came out. Intellectual Quickies. Basically making fun of the era when Snoop Dogg was really going all in on pimp iconography and the idea of himself as a pimp, where he said things that definitely would not fly today, things that would get him packed out for saying them today. You know, again, just reminding everybody that any of these people, particularly anybody who's at like that level of money and influence, they have probably been a bit of a chameleon. They've probably, changed faces and fucked over different people in different sectors over quite a long stretch of time. She's been really just cranking out videos like all year. There's Understanding the 1980s Economy, Teen Drugs and Alcohol in the 80s, Elon Musk's Family Values, which I really enjoyed, and China in the 80s, all other videos that came out this year. So this is definitely a channel to be keeping an eye on. Acculturation had a video called We Secretly Crave Neo-Medievalism, trying to explain basically why people are trying to crawl themselves back into the world of fantasy, and essentially addressing the fact that we kind of do like actually live in like a new Warring States period, or a new like like we're in fiefdoms, but they're like of brands instead of but like it makes us want to visualize ourselves in that medieval way. There's a lot more to this theory. It's like 15 minutes long. Did the FBI plant a bomb in an environmentalist's car? An unsolved mystery from Oki's Weird Stories. I called Oki the best documentary channel on YouTube. The videos come out quite rarely, so the fact that we started off the year with one is always a nice sign, and it's about this unsolved mystery of whether or not the FBI planted a bomb in this environmentalist car to make it look like she did it. Tommy NFG is a channel I only just found out about from this video, The Craziest Rebranding Ever, which is about how Mark Zuckerberg has totally changed his like way of being in recent years. He used to be this like bizarre robot that seemed to be parodying humanity. I really think, and I commented this on the video, I'm convinced that Nathan Fielder's character is supposed to be Zuckerberg. Like the character of Nathan Fielder in like Nathan For You and everything, he talks just like Zuckerberg and has the same kind of like distant from humanity approach to everything. Because of that, I also would love to see Nathan Fielder's character take this same evolution of like doing jujitsu and trying to like, it feels like Zuckerberg is literally trying to learn how to be human because he thinks it will help him with his whole, being human for the rest of his life thing, which is, I understand that. I understand the approach. I know what it's like to change, to rebrand pretty heavy. Therapy is a channel that I only subscribed to finally this year. I had heard about them from Professor Sky, and this video, Drake and academics are blackmailing LeBron. There's a lot of talk about this. So I don't follow basketball. I don't know shit about LeBron James other than through his connections to the world of hip-hop, really. But the situation where Drake is so emotional about this man listening to Kendrick Lamar's music when he thought that they were like the best of friends, released a whole diss track against LeBron James, essentially, where he basically threatens him, and then this leads to academics saying all this crazy stuff about how he's been like sex trafficking women to LeBron. This shit is madness. Listening to Therapy break down the stuff academics said was really funny, even though the stuff said itself is incredibly just wow. Miles Morales is definitely cursed. A video from Cat the Dog about how all of the different voice actors of Miles Morales have some reason not to like them, which is strange. Female rap is too far gone. Twerk over talent from Cameron Suzanne. This is a great video just analyzing the history of female rappers, the current state of the game for female rappers, wondering if women and the way they've portrayed themselves or been portrayed by the rap industry up until this point has cooked things so hard that women won't ever get the respect they really deserve in the space. But there's sort of a hopeful lens in this video that like, well, there's just so much talent going on right now that, could it be ignored forever? Probably not. And yeah, we are truly in the era of like, and I couldn't even just start listing names because I'd be here all day of how many great female MCs are out. So I hope that we're close to seeing some of the really artsy ones who are not simply twerking blow up and get really famous. Redman names his rap Avengers, talks going celibate for 2 years from the Company Man. This is a video about rapper Redman from the Wu-Tang Clan, going over some of the intriguing talking points from an interview he had recently, and basically just reminding you that he put out an album, because it's an album that was a long time coming, and it came out like right at the end of the year, right when, everybody's kind of burned out on revisiting every single thing they listened to in 2024, trying to put together a list. I had totally missed that this album happened. So if not for this video, I wouldn't listen to it. And the album's really good. So I'm glad that that happened. What's the Dirt? A Cautionary Tale from Kiki, or Kexke. This is a rant channel. Mostly they've just been picking a target and going in on sheer venom and vitriol. But they've been some pretty good rants. The What's the Dirt one, if you missed out on the whole What's the Dirt saga last year, I think this channel gives a good perspective into what was going on there. Where do you put the camera? New every frame of painting video. Quite frankly, if you do cinematography and editing, or anything involving film, you really just gotta watch every video on this channel, because they're all classics. The TikTok ban, a video from Zevi. This is just a short basically explaining why the TikTok ban was rearing its head again. Of course, TikTok got banned and then it came back instantly. I kind of skirted watching most videos about this because I didn't expect it to happen, until it did happen. And then when it came back, I was like, yeah, why am I not at all shocked? I don't think it's something that can really happen, but the tease of it is a great way to distract Americans. And Zevi does a good job of explaining why Americans would need to be distracted right now. Finally, understanding The Wire's most confusing scene from Jew Almighty. This is a great one. I have not ever finished The Wire because it is so hard to watch. It's so harrowing and dark, but it is the best written show I have ever seen. At such a level that it's almost not, there's nothing I can really compare to it on the writing level in terms of what it has to say about reality and how stark its portrayal of reality is. I just think it is the realest show, the realest shit out there, And this video explains kind of one scene that, while very confusing, unravels some of the core points of what the show is saying about the unchangeable nature of reality, about viewing the world as it is instead of as you want it to be. The Drake lawsuit is worse than you think, from Rap Latte. So, in addition to Drake having dropped this diss track on LeBron James, so towards the end of last year, he was putting out a petition or something to file a lawsuit against UMG over Not Like Us. And then this year he retracted that and actually filed the lawsuit itself against UMG. And it's an 81-page lawsuit. I made a video about it, basically comparing it to the LOL suit that Maddox did against Dick Masterson. There's tons and tons of people talking about this, but Rap Latte was the funniest. They had Curtis King on, and they were really just going in about this whole situation. It's also just a longer podcast that goes into other tangents and stuff, so, even beyond the Drake talk, this was a really fun one. I ended up catching a lot of it live, and I was laughing my ass off. Would you still love me if I was a worm? This is a quick little 1-minute sketch comedy video from My Senpai, whom I only just found out about, and all of her shorts are pretty hilarious. I won't really describe it would kind of ruin the joke. Hawk Tuah and the Banality of Internet Evil from Art Chad. This is a cool video about why Hawk Tuah girl kind of just got away with taking a bunch of people's money, and it was such an expected thing that it's kind of yeah, of course that would happen. Of course people are fucking each other over on the internet, and idiots, buy into this nonsense and get all their money taken, because nobody listens to the people who say, who point out the fact that nobody listens to the journalism about it, so it's just going to keep happening, and this is a great video about why that is the case. The Boondocks and the Peanuts, Behind the Boondocks from The Storyteller. This is the channel that goes incredibly in-depth about everything the Boondocks. I haven't seen their latest video yet, which ranks all the episodes in season 1. But this is a great video about how the Peanuts influenced the Boondocks, analyzing that influence, the specificity of what was Aaron McGruder taking from that, learning from that, and passing forward from that. All right, Don't Worry, This Will Never Happen Again by J-Rag. I mentioned that there was a video about the California fires I did want to talk about. Yeah, so these California wildfires, people are acting like there's something unprecedented about them, or that they must be arson or something, even though it's highly predicted. This specific circumstance was described by people who thought it would happen. And also, California catches on fire all the time, and so does a lot of actually the West. And it's almost like there shouldn't be all these fucking houses built there. It's not really a place that's safe to live. Most of California is a flaming fucking desert that catches on fire routinely. So, I just think that there's a lot of hubris involved in the idea that we could, I understand why it seems like idyllic to live in California. Let me tell you about a city called Paradise. There's a city in California called Paradise, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous place, but it burns down every 5 fucking years, if not more. And of course, everybody's got fire insurance. There's an expectation that your stuff's gonna burn down, but that's you're basically saying, okay, well, 99.99% of the time, this is a perfect place to live, but the other 1% of the time, I lose absolutely everything I have. That's the trade you're saying you're willing to make if you live in LA. And I feel for people who've lost their family, lost their lives and stuff, but there is also this prevalent feeling in my mind of y'all could afford to live out there. Y'all could afford to live in a place that you think might burn down. To buy $1 million house that you think could burn down. You have insurance for the fact that it burning down is an expectation of something that could happen. I like that J-Reg lays the realism of this not only was highly likely, but will definitely happen again. So, what I learned about men, love, and loneliness while being sex trafficked from Seizure Girl. I gotta say, I feel like I understood a lot of these things that she talks about in this video, maybe because I've listened to other people from similar scenarios tell similar stories, but just the harrowing experience of this video where she's really going into her feelings and really explaining her situation with this level of empathy for the people she's talking about that I think is unparalleled. I think this is a great healing video, a great reminder that you need to maintain a positive attitude towards your future. When you see somebody who you understand why that's a struggle and you're watching them do that struggle, and you really can be how could I possibly do less than what she's willing to do? It was kind of the feeling that I got from this in terms of empathy, in terms of willingness to try to understand the world and to feel not crushed by it in spite of however it's wronged you. Yelling at some poor fool about community on the Greg Guevara channel. Once again, J-Reg. This is J-Reg just laying in on one of these doom spiral comments, which I cannot stand these types of comments, so I was very happy to see him go in on this. But particularly, it was somebody complaining about how, it's impossible to create a a community of dreamers and art people. And first of all, people have been saying that forever. It's always whoever can't hack it in one, and it's always because you don't understand how hard it is always. I mean, first of all, most of the time when something actually gets done, it's because there's one person who really has a vision and a bunch of people who believe in that vision who are trying to make that person's vision work. If you can't get a bunch of people to follow your vision, it means you're not a strong enough leader. If you won't follow a leader, it means that you have too much self-importance and you don't know how to humble yourself to somebody else's thing. Now, it could just be that you've never found somebody you trust enough to think it's worth doing that, but that should be your mission. Find someone you trust enough to want to be a part of their thing. It feels like people are giving up as soon as they have a bad experience, as if that disqualifies good experiences from being possible. Maybe they're just not hearing about the good experiences that are going on elsewhere, but obviously someone's having them. I liked this video because J-Reg is hey, look, I'm a year into doing this thing, and yeah, I was in your position. I thought it seemed impossible, and even now as I'm doing it, it's incredibly difficult. And so I understand why for J-Reg, he's hey, motherfucker, how dare you say this thing that I'm spending all of my effort to make possible is impossible, so that you can cry and feel good about yourself for your failure. Fuck that. you have to accept that doing anything is just incredibly difficult. If you don't have the drive to just decide that you're going to put yourself through something that hurts and it sucks a lot of the time to make it work, you're not going to make anything work, because everything hurts and sucks a lot of the time. The Alt-Right Playbook X Philosophy Tube video Double Wrong Innuendo Studios is a channel that is long dedicated mostly to analyzing the approaches that people on the alt-right take towards online communication, the ways that they try to win debates, to minimize what leftists have to say, to just generally create an atmosphere where they feel like they are normal and they're correct, and that you, as somebody who thinks something else, should be shunned and excluded and gaslit. And so they go through all the different techniques that these people will use. In this case, double wrong is like when somebody brings in a study that's not only badly done, but also doesn't really say what they're saying it says, but they will claim that, like, you just don't know how to read it, you know, type thing. Like, just one of the many ways that people will move goalposts so that they can never lose an argument. Personally, I think getting into an argument online is a loss in the first place, and if you're doing it, stop. I argue with people in my comments because it feeds engagement and it leads to more views. Like, if that wasn't the case, I would not be doing it, and I would not be encouraging you to do it. I've got a pair of videos here to recommend that I recorded another video, I don't know if it's coming out before or after this one, that kind of responds to both of them. But there was a Lextorius video, Where Does the Big Three Even Come From?, which is about the concept of the Big Three as it has appeared in manga, as it applied to One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach, and how did that come to be? Was there any, like, official recognition of it as a concept? Where did it go? And I ended up recording my own whole video kind of going through the history of how I interpreted the Big Three, or how I saw it being interpreted culturally. And then there's also this video, Anthony Aiken Jr., that came out the same day, The Rise and Fallout of the Big Three, a deep dive into Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and J. Cole, and talking about how that whole concept came to be and how that, in a certain context, did make sense to look at them as the Big Three at a certain time and place. But, you know, it fell out. And that's another thing I talk about in my response as well, is basically comparing the anime Big Three and the rap Big Three and, you know, the thesis of these two videos into something more cohesive. All right, another new channel I just found out about, According to Adri, Cooking for the Culture, The Locks. This is a really fun channel where she makes recipes based off of stuff that's referenced in rap lyrics, and then kind of explains who the artist is, her opinions of that artist, her history with them, why she cares, and also, you know, how to make the dish that she's preparing, how it connects to the music. It's a fun show. I've never really listened to The Locks very much. I know they're good. I've heard a few songs. I mostly know that one Grip song called The Locks, where he sings, I want the locks, money, power, respect, I need a check for the ops. So that song alone makes me want to listen to more of The Locks, and this video did too. Broccoli Rock, YM2612. This is just a really cool Sega Genesis sounding song by Bit Blitz. I like this channel. They do good Sega Genesis songs. Flip Down Yonder is one of my favorite artists in the world, who I also have the pleasure of knowing. And he put out a video called I Have 5 Comics, which is basically just an ad for the 5 comics in question. I highly recommend reading all those comics. And I also want to mention Licks Part 6451, It's Fine If You Cry Because. Basically, Flip Down Yonder puts out a video every so often that's just a collection of really tiny snippets of songs, or licks, if you will, and usually text on screen explaining what makes that lick interesting, but they're just slammed one after another. According to Flip, this is so that he can, like, just hit backspace and, like, keep listening to it over and over again. And the collections are to literally remember them, because his memory is really bad, so he will forget all of these if they're not collected. But he's been making them for years and years. So if you just want to hear collections of legendary licks from songs, they're always something special, because Flip really knows music like that and is one of the best music analysts on YouTube on the rare occasions that one of those videos gets made. So definitely check out everything Flip does. Dochi Catfish, but it's Animal Crossing from the channel Not Yarrow. I couldn't believe how well it worked. It was just a really good mashup. The Worst Asterisk Ninja Game by K-Bash. I love this video. I love that K-Bash has made almost like a total 180, even more than I have, from his start as somebody who's like jokily ragging on games that are like good and liked for their flaws, and now getting to a point of defending games that have been critically completely, lambasted for their whole existence because of the things that are actually likable about them. And it was really exciting for me because Red Ninja is a game that, like, I mean, okay, if I say like the character design has always drawn me to the game, you're going to think I mean like, okay, well, yeah, it's a hot girl with big tits. There's tons of video games with hot girls with big tits. I'm really into ninjas, like Kunoichi Ninja. I'm like way into Kunoichi as just an idea, and there's very few games that actually let you play as a girl ninja. Like Tenchu is awesome. I love the girl from Tenchu. She has like no personality to speak of, and I love her character design, but it's not something that stands out a lot. And it's a shame that Red Ninja is like a game that was easy to hate on. It was easy to, to see why it didn't get the chance to be sequelized and innovated on. But if it had, it could have become a franchise that might have been something interesting, because the game does have unique stuff to offer. And watching this video made me think, actually, I probably would like this game, like I don't know if I'd love it. I don't know if I'd beat it. I don't know if I would play it in the year of our Lord 2025 as somebody who doesn't really play a lot of old video games. But it was exciting to realize that this thing that I have only ever heard written off, that I always wanted to be good just based on the concept of the design, has something likable about it. That was nice to know. I mentioned earlier that clip of the rapper shooting himself in the leg on a podcast, and that Josh Johnson had a comedy bit where he talked about that. I believe it's the Why They're Turning on Elon, which is like 45-minute stand-up bit. So there's more than just talking about Elon Musk in it. Josh Johnson's pretty friggin' funny. I think he's like a writer on The Daily Show, and he does a stand-up show like every 2 weeks about whatever's currently going on in the news. And it's almost somewhere between like just giving you the news and doing a stand-up bit. Like sometimes he's not quite doing jokes as he is bridging between comedy segments by informing you of what the setup is. But when he does the bits, they're often really good bits. This one had some funny parts. State of the Arc Podcast, underrated games you're sleeping on. Just a great video for some game recommendations if you want to hear them from two JRPG diehard enthusiasts who've played practically everything in the genre, recommending, beyond just JRPGs, but all kinds of games that haven't been rated highly enough. And there's also a sort of discussion of what the phrase underrated means, because they're specifically not talking about under-discussed games, but games that they think should have been rated more highly than they have been, which is much more interesting to me than slept-on games. Because people always say, oh, it's so underrated, to mean like this isn't something absolutely everyone loves, even though everybody who does like it thinks it's like the greatest thing ever. Vic and Hope, once again, don't let it get canceled. Invincible Fight Girl discussion. I haven't actually watched this show, but they are very enthusiastic about it and recommending it. So if you're looking for a cartoon with a very obvious trigger influence to check out, watch Vic and Hope's recommendation. And the last thing I'm going to recommend here is Culture United 5. Culture United 5 Drake lawsuit, Joey Badass versus everybody. On the Company Man's channel, this is a podcast that comes out every couple of weeks where Justin Hunt brings in all of the best and brightest of the hip-hop commentary community in a rotating panel to talk about whatever's going on in hip-hop that week. I'm only just starting this up as I record right now. Like, I'm about to stop this recording and then listen to that while I'm editing this recording. So, I don't know the whole conversation. I just know that Culture United has been my favorite podcast since it came out. It is the most mature discussion format thing I've ever seen on YouTube. So I highly recommend it. And that's it. Wow, so many goddamn YouTube videos that I hopefully linked all of them in the description. I will probably do my next one of these even sooner because y'all don't stop rolling with the hits. I mean, this was only like probably half of all the videos I actually watched so far this year, you know, maybe even only a third. So there's been a lot of gold. There's a few channels that I have also found out about that put out videos last year that I hadn't seen until this year, but I think I will wait until those channels put out something this year for me to talk about them, and then I'll, you know, address the fact that there was something I left out of my best of last year video. Anyways, do not let me fail to see a great video that comes out this year, please. I want to know all of them. Thanks again for watching. I've been Trixie the Golden Witch. You can find all my stuff below, and thanks again for watching YouTube forever.